Hey, welcome to the Kids Ministry Leader Podcast, a conversation designed to encourage, equip, and inspire children's ministries from churches of all sizes. Large, small, urban, and rural churches, we want to put good tools in the hands of people that are involved in children's ministry. So again, my name's Scott Marish, and I'm here with my co-hosts.
I'm Trisha Marish.
And Kayla Risk.
And today's guest is Rachel Pilcher. Rachel, why don't you say hi to everyone?
Hey guys, it's so good to be with you guys today. I'm just so honored to be able to chat with more kids pastors. In times like these, it's just crazy and it's so good to be connected.
That's awesome, Rachel. Well, we are so excited that you're here. And just kind of right at the beginning, we just want to know something that nobody else knows about Rachel. So we're going to throw that surprise at you and just say, hey, will you let us know something that no one else does?
Yeah, so probably for this group of people, they may not know that I'm a huge Disney fan. I have watched all the Disney movies. I've been to so many of the Disney parks so many times. I am a huge Disney fan. So just for kicks and giggles, my favorite movie from when I was a little girl was Lion King. And my favorite current movie from when I was still kind of growing up, but a little bit older, is Monsters, Inc. So that's my favorite Pixar movie.
What's the favorite ride if you've been to Disney parks?
Oh, that's hard because they're all different. But I could narrow it down to a park. My favorite park is Magic Kingdom. And that's just why I love Magic Kingdom.
Yeah, it's classic. Okay, well, to start off with our listeners, could you tell us about your calling to ministry? How did you get involved in children's ministry?
Yeah, so I have the typical story. I was raised as a pastor's kid. My mom and my dad were both really involved with church, and I actually fell in love with Jesus as a pastor's kid. I was able to find Jesus and find that relationship, and they immediately started putting me in kids' church, and I just learned how to do it, and I loved seeing that aha moment for kids. You know, as grown-ups, you don't always see the aha moment, but with kids, it's like literally on their face that they get who Jesus is and what he did for them. Then I had a mentor when I was in 8th grade. I had a mentor that kind of took me under her wing. She led praise and worship in kids' church, and she helped with leading the Bible stories and the games and different things like that. And she actually got really, really sick when I was in 8th grade and actually passed away. And through that process of the Lord helping me grieve and losing my mentor, he called me to ministry. And I remember the moment. I always wanted to be a pastor's wife. And he said, Rachel, I don't need you to be just a pastor's wife. I need you to be a pastor. And through that call of ministry, I was able to the opportunities just kept kind of flooding in, and I wouldn't imagine my life any place else than being right in the middle of kids' church.
Wow.
Well,
that's amazing. So where are you right now? Like, what is the church like that you're pastoring at right now?
Yeah, so I actually moved during COVID, and I know that sounds crazy, but I transitioned to a new church. I was out in Colorado for 5 years, and at a fantastic church out there, and I wasn't even looking at moving, and God was like, Rach, I need you to go somewhere else. And if I've learned anything about being a pastor, it's you need to be obedient. You need to just follow what he has for you. And so I'm now at a church in Griffin, Georgia, which is just outside of Atlanta. And this church is a fantastic church that is just deep South, super Pentecostal. They love kids. They love their community. And they have actually been through a little bit of trauma in the last year. In October of 2019, they lost their beloved pastor. He passed away very unexpectedly. And so they were kind of in the middle of the grieving process, and then COVID hit. And so we're kind of just slowly getting back to things. And now that people are starting to come back, we're actually having to walk them through some grief processes again. And so COVID and then this trauma, as well as losing their lead pastor, as well as all new staff, has kind of been difficult for them.
Wow, well, that's an incredible thing for you to be able to be a part of the team for bringing health and recovery and life to that congregation. So thank you, Rachel, for taking on that challenge. I know ministry relationships are huge, and being a part of the succession. When someone served in a church for a long time, it's hard to be that next group of people coming back in. So it does sound like God called you there for sure. What a blessing. Well, we're glad to hear that God's taken you from one great church to another great church. And one of the things that is a signature of the Kids Ministry Leader podcast is that we want to recognize that life is not always rosy in children's ministry. There are some struggles and hard times. So anyone who's involved, if you're an entrepreneur in business or if you're a senior pastor, you know that there's some big fails. Sometimes things just, the bottom drops out and you're like, oh my goodness, what happened? Do you have any ministry fails or ministry struggles that you can share with our listeners that would lift them up and inspire them to let them know they're not alone?
Yeah, probably one of the I was a brand new kids pastor in 2010, and I was out there doing my thing. I was having fun with the kids, and I dropped the ball majorly. I had forgotten to communicate to parents. And that was one of my big mess ups. And so what I had done is I told the parents, this is what we're doing. This is what we're going to be doing. So expect this, have your kids dressed and ready to go in this, we're going to do like an outside water party. And so I was like, this is what's going to happen. And it was so funny. I get the families there and I've got all ages. I've got preschoolers, I've got elementary kids, I've got nursery kids, I've got teenagers, I've got every single age. I had forgotten one key piece of information, who it was actually for. And so we're out there, I've got babies crawling, I've got kids running places, I've got teenagers trying to tackle kids. It was just a mess. And so in that moment, very, very quickly, I was maybe a kids pastor for like 8 weeks. I learned the most important lesson on communication and making sure we communicate. And I've learned that no matter what you have to communicate, if you communicate it well, even if it's bad news, it goes so much better when you communicate with honesty and authenticity.
Communication is so key. That is awesome. I mean, what a great thing to learn from. I mean, I can imagine you're like, but in that moment, knowing that you can step forward, and how wonderful that you learned that so early.
True.
Sometimes it takes years to learn that about communication with parents. And I love that authentic communication is, we all need that in every area of our lives. So yeah, let's apply it to kids ministry. But well, thanks for that learning moment. And we also want to give you an opportunity to just really share something that was amazing that God did, something that you were able to be a part of, a big win, a time when you can brag on God. What could you share with us, Rachel?
I think that one of the things that I have just so enjoyed was my time there in Colorado. That's when my ministry and my team, God really orchestrated, and he put us all together for such a time as this. And during that time in Colorado, I was able to really see the big picture of what God had for me on the next horizon. And so through that time in Colorado, I became Royal Family Kids Camp director trained. For those of you that don't know what that is a foster camp for kids it's a kids camp for foster care kids in your local foster care system. And one of the things is my husband and I have been foster parents, we're adoptive parents, and that was just something that was so deep on my heart, was ministry to those kids that kind of get forgotten a lot. And we worked with our county, and it was just amazing to watch God continue to put the pieces together of that camp. We tried, there were 2 years that we were not able to have that camp because of money or volunteers or whatever little issues came up. But the next year we'd come back, better and stronger and more excited and more passionate. And then that next year it fell apart again. And so the next year we came back with more money, with more volunteers, and more excited and more passionate about it. And what that did is that built a kind of a launching pad for our church to reach out to our community. And we loved that. And so probably the biggest, kind of win we did was churches left the building. And it was something, a lot of churches do this, but every church that experiences it has their own understanding of it. And so what we did is we decided that one Sunday in March, we were going to just tell our church, we're going to leave the building. You're going to come here, you're going to get a job, and you're going to go out to the community, and we're going to do this. And we all wore these bright red shirts. And so it was kind of the joke, the red shirts are coming, the red shirts are coming. And it was just so much fun. But we conquered 8 different jobs that day and 8 different serving projects that day. We remodeled a office that housed a organization that helped people without jobs, homeless folks. They helped them find housing. We helped with DHS, which is our local Department of Human Resources. We helped an entire neighborhood clean up. We filled up like 4 or 5 huge roll-off dumpsters that day. We also packed bags for foster care families while they were traveling with their foster kids to appointments and things. We packed bags for kids to take home on the weekends that were maybe under the poverty line, different things like that. And through that, watching families serve together and get it, that was hands down my brightest moment of 2020. It was just amazing to watch. The kids were coming back into the church and they're like, Pastor Rachel, you're not going to believe what we did today. And I was like, what is it? And they were like, I painted a room. And in no other way, shape, or form, if we would have not put that on, I don't think the parents would have taken the initiative to have their kids serve alongside them. But we gave them the opportunity, the environment for the Holy Spirit to work. And then once they realized how cool this was and how easy it was for their kids to work alongside them, it really pushed them to the next level in their serving and in their understanding of Jesus.
Well, that's huge to be able to take people outside the church, to do church outside the building, and get people in the serving mode. The training that you went through for Royal Family Kids and that type of event gives you the chops, if you will, gives you the skills to recruit and train and equip people. And I know after we went through our training, my wife and I were directors for Royal Family Kids for years and years, and doing summer camps for foster kids. And after our first director's training, we came back and instituted those principles of treating our staff royally, giving them excellent resources, putting good outlines in their hands so they knew what they were supposed to do. And within 1 year, we took our volunteer team on Sunday mornings from 12 people involved in children's ministry to over 90 people involved in children's ministry. And over the course of a month, not every single Sunday, rotating through over the course of the month, but 90 people on the team. And that was a massive growth curve. So, and I know you've experienced those things. So, all right, well, Kayla, I'm going to give you the next tough question.
Yeah, so it sounds like I love how much creativity you had to put into those projects. And if 2020 could be summed up, it could be the year of inventing with new creativity. Like, we've had to get really creative in how to minister to our families. So we were wondering, what are some adaptations you've had to make in your ministry to effectively minister to the families in your community?
Yeah, given that COVID has been a reality for us over the last year.
Yeah, for COVID.
Yeah, absolutely. So the funny side note about that story is that was 2 weeks before we shut down. So we went out March 1 and we said, we're not having church in the building. And we were like, well, that was very foretelling, right? And so we've laughed about that since then. So we had church 1 more week and then we had to go online. And so what I learned through 2020 and the way that I pastor as a family pastor or as a next gen director, as a kids pastor, I always put the tools in the hands of the parents. And I think that was just magnified in 2020. So I was doing a lot of the same things already. I just magnified it because I couldn't be in the building. So things like family scavenger hunts, family outings, family devotions, all of that I was already doing. I just made it bigger. And that was really all we could do while we were there. And so one of the things that I noticed right away is these kids pastors were doing, 60 and 90-minute videos on their entire kids church service. And I just didn't have it in me to do that. Our kids were already online doing school. our families weren't watching, they were having trouble keeping up with school. And so one of the things I did is I said, you know what, I'm going to do 7-minute videos. That's it. 7-minute videos. They can watch them while mom or dad are making dinner. They can watch it while mom or dad is taking a shower. They can watch it while while they're getting ready for bed, whatever that looked like. I put myself in the place of what would a mom or dad want when I was making curriculum. And so we were able to kind of pivot really quickly. And it felt wrong. It felt wrong. It felt like I was doing something wrong. But I know that I had clearly heard from the Lord because it was actually ministering to our families. And so that doesn't mean by any stretch of the imagination that the children's pastors that were doing full services were wrong. I was just really, really in tune with what my community needed, with what my church needed. And the Lord was able to help me with that creativity to really minister to those people in my area.
That's amazing, Rachel. So, that listening to the Holy Spirit, he is the one that knows the hearts of the people that we serve. He's the one that knows the names of every child that we come in contact with. And so we can trust him. We can trust him to tell us individually how to best serve those kids and those families. And I love that you came at it from the parent perspective, because the family is such an important unit. And if we can strengthen that unit in any way, it's always a win. And I know that is the heart of the Lord. So that's great. Thank you for sharing that with us. And one of the things that we also are excited about using this platform for is to be able to share great resources with our listeners. And so it could be books or websites or just any kind of a resource. Do you have something that you can share with us that will be something that our listeners could use?
Yes, I am an avid reader. I love to read, and I have recently discovered the art of Audible. And so I am a mom of a special needs 4-year-old little girl. She's almost 5. And so the practical side of like sitting down with a hot cup of cocoa and putting my feet up is just not going to happen with my little girl. She is busy, busy, busy. And we're constantly putting princess dresses on and having tea and putting the baby dolls in the stroller. And so having a physical book has just not been necessarily in my my capabilities. But this year I kind of did a hybrid of listening to books and also reading paperback books. And so I have a few here that I couldn't pick one because I read 35 books this year. And so I tried to find a few that would fit the masses. So my one of my favorite authors is Michelle Anthony. Michelle Anthony wrote Dreaming of More and the Becoming a Spiritually Healthy Family. These two are fantastic books that help children's pastors, youth pastors, any kind of next gen, early childhood, nursery directors, Royal Rangers, girls ministries, whatever you can find, any kind of Awana program, anything like that. It helps you make your programs meaningful. So many times we've been in kids ministries. I've been in kids ministry, full-time, volunteer, whatever, since I was 15 years old. And I look back and I think, did we really make a difference? Did we really make a difference in the lives of our kids? Or did we just host a whole lot of pizza parties and overnight trips and things like that? And these two books will help you make sure your programs look like they are going to make a difference in the life of children. And so I love these two books. So Dreaming of More by Michelle Anthony and Becoming a Spiritually Healthy Family by Michelle Anthony. I'm actually leading small groups in these for our parents just coming up in a couple weeks. Leadership books, Change Before You Have To, is Rob Ketterling. This book completely changed my life. I read it last year and I read it this year. 2019 and 2020, I read this book, completely changed my life. Just a normal, regular, run-of-the-mill leadership book. I popped it open and there are a few things that God showed me in this book when I read it, and I've given them up, and I haven't looked back since I read that book the first time. The last book that I've gotten is more for like if you lead people, like paid staff. If you're leading paid staff, this book is called Death by Meeting by Patrick Lencioni. This book is phenomenal. It has completely changed my staff meetings, completely changed the way that I meet with people. You definitely can apply it to like one-on-one meetings too, mentoring, those types of things. If you're trying to help somebody get to the next level, that book also is extremely helpful too.
Well, I'm just gonna say that, Rachel, you have hit some of my favorites. I know Rob Ketterling, terrific resource, but also Patrick Lencioni, Death by Meeting, is a terrific book. He has some others that once you've hit him, you're going to find other resources. So I think our resource list is turning into like a gold mine over the last several weeks. If any of our listeners want to just take any one of these books that has been recommended by our listeners, please go to our, click the link below the YouTube video or click the link that is attached to whatever podcast resource you're listening to, iTunes or Spotify. There's a resource page that links through, and all the links to these books, if you'd like to purchase them, are going to be in those show notes, if you will. And also, let me just say this very gratuitously, when you purchase anything through Amazon, you're supporting the Kids Ministry Leader podcast, and a portion of those proceeds do come back to us to help us to create more content. So in our Patreon page for support, we just are so thankful to be able to do this and eventually, ultimately be able to host live and online conferences for kids ministry leaders from churches of all sizes. So a little commercial in the middle of the podcast there. So let me hand it over to Kayla.
Yeah, Rachel, you've been such a great guest. We just have loved having you on, and your authenticity just makes it feel so friendly. I'm sure all of our listeners are loving it. If you were given the opportunity to start a children's ministry from scratch, so go to a new church and they're like, hey, we want you to start from scratch, what are the first couple of things you would do to launch that new family ministry?
Yeah, so I'm not doing it from scratch, but I've been here about 12 weeks. So I feel kind of like that I'm living the question right now. So definitely not from scratch, but I think that when you come back from COVID, the church that I'm at, they had like 4 weeks of kids' church after COVID before I got here. So really a lot of children's pastors are feeling that. I know that on my Facebook groups and in some of the text message groups I'm in, there are tons and tons of churches that haven't gone back yet to kids ministry, and they're having family services or they're doing whatever that looks like. But one of the things that COVID kind of bestowed upon us is this from scratch mentality. Is you haven't done it for 10 months, you haven't done it for 11 months, 9 months, whatever it was, and you get to come back and you kind of get to change it. There are no rules, you don't have to bring anything back that you didn't want to. It kind of was like heaven for a lot of us kids pastors. And so one of the things that I absolutely recommend is relationship building. You have to build relationships. So for me, what that looks like right now is I'm teaching, I'm running a small group with parents, and I'm running check-in. Check-in is the area that you can connect with parents 2 to 3 minutes, make their experience a little bit quicker, a little bit faster while you print off their name tags or check their kids in. Speaking to a child by name helps a parent know that their child has a place and belongs there. Those are the things I think that being out there in front, so parents can see you, they get to know you. They also their children begin to attach to you. That is huge. Letting parents know that their kids like you. And then making sure you're building relationships, going out to eat with people, having play dates, doing that kind of thing. Back in the day when we could go back into schools, I did school lunches, and I'd go and hang out with kids at school lunches. They're totally different kids at school than they are at church or even at home. And so that was important. So find ways to build relationships with kids. And then the last thing is teaching. And so it's so easy to, as a brand new kids pastor anywhere, finding that team, building that team, and passing those responsibilities off. But if you're building relationships with kids, then you need to also have the spiritual side as well, and making sure that you're building that that spiritual relationship. That's just as important as the relationship of like the social as well.
Yeah, well, if you build relationships with the families and you know the children's names, you've got them. You've got the connection. If you can call a child by name, it's magic, because there's nothing sweeter. I mean, I like to say it, if Jesus is going to have our names written in the Lamb's Book of Life in heaven, certainly we can learn the names of the children that we serve. And it's sometimes hard work, because there's a lot of them, especially when you get to a larger place. But those names are very huge. Well, Rachel, I just want to say thank you. You have given us some tremendous golden nuggets of kids ministry building tools, resources, great ideas, and just the genuine nature of who you are. You just live and breathe this, and it shows in every way. How can our listeners connect with you online if they want to see what's going on through your website or through your children's ministry pages? Where can they find resources that you're using?
Yeah, so I'm on Facebook and I'm on Instagram. That's kind of where I kind of hang out the most. So I'm my Facebook name and my, I guess my Facebook name is Rachel Lackey Pilcher. That's my maiden name. So many people knew me with my maiden name that I've just never changed it. And then my Instagram handle is Rachel C. Pilcher. And then my ministry pages, I've got, you can see those through my personal pages, but I've got my Kinetic Kids ministry pages through that as well.
Yeah, Kinetic. I love the name of that ministry. Any insight as to how you named it that and where the spark was for that?
I actually inherited it. So I've only been here 12 weeks. So that was my predecessor, but they used a verse just to talking about sparking that faith, that combustion. When you spark the faith in a child, that it will burn big and bright for Jesus.
Yeah, kinetic energy, kidnetic energy. I love it. I love it. Well, Rachel, thanks for being with us today on the podcast. Again, for our listeners, we want to have you click through the link on our website, kidsministryleader.com. Go to our resource pages. You can find all the stuff that's there. And any last comments, ladies, before we sign off?
Well, let us know if there's someone you are wanting us to interview too. You can submit that on our website at kidsministryleader.com. And we'd love to know what ministry leaders you'd love to hear from.
Yep, we can't wait to get those virtual and live conferences ready to go. So be watching and sign up for our email list as well. Thanks again for joining us for the Kids Ministry Leader Podcast. We'll see you again soon.
Bye.